Ladies and gentlemen, you're all very welcome out there in Zoom land to this slightly surreal but very, very important celebration. Today we showcase the very best of the Teagasc Walsh Scholarship Programme and the Alum Network, and we honour some true leaders in their field of research. I chaired this gig a couple of years ago in 2018 in Johnstown Castle in County Wexford, home place of Dr. Tom Walsh, and I was absolutely blown away by the pioneering, cutting-edge research that I saw. Really world-class talent and innovation. And so I'm really looking forward to today, and my only regret is that I can't meet you all in person, but hopefully another occasion. Now, I've been told to keep things clipping along. You're all out there in makeshift offices and box rooms and bedrooms and garden sheds and what have you. So I promise to do just that. We'll get the show on the road and I'll keep things fairly pacey, and we hope to wrap up in the next hour and 15 minutes to hour and a half. So first of all, let me take you through the running order. So, you're very welcome to the next generation, a showcase of Teagasc's leading postgraduate research. We're going to hear presently from Professor Frank O'Mara, Director of Research here in Teagasc. We'll hear from the Walsh Scholar category winners, 5 in total. And remember, they are only too delighted to answer your questions. So get your questions in using the Q&A function on Zoom. We will award the Walsh Scholars Gold Medal also. We'll hear from Professor Jerry Boyle, Director of Teagasc. And Jerry will talk to us about the Alum Network and the importance of bringing alumni together. And Jerry will also announce the Alum Award winner for 2020. But first, Professor Frank O'Mara is here. And Frank, I get the impression that you guys here in Teagasc are immensely proud of this programme.
Absolutely, we're very proud of the programme, and I suppose really very proud of the people in the programme. Sharon, it's one of the jewels in our crown. It's a programme whereby we fund about 50 to 60 Walsh Scholars every year to come in and work on the issues facing agriculture and food in Ireland and indeed internationally. And we fund those ourselves or with the financial assistance of funding agencies like the Department of Ag or Science Foundation Ireland or even European funding. And what we're trying to do with this programme is provide scholarship opportunities to graduates of agriculture or food science or many other disciplines. Really what we're trying to do is get the best and the brightest people in to allow them to do a PhD or a master's indeed while they're carrying out some research and to work on an issue that's of real importance to the agriculture and food industry.
And we know it's a massively important sector, agri-food, agri-science, a huge part of the Irish economy and indeed the rural economy, and presumably that is more important now than ever.
Well, sure, absolutely. Look, it's our biggest indigenous industry and it spreads right around the country into every parish in the country. So for rural areas, its importance is even greater. And with the current COVID issues that we have, you know, and we see our hospitality sector in having such trouble, well, the farming and food is still there, and it has now, you know, been heightened in terms of importance in many parts of the country.
And give us a flavour of the type of research that's ongoing, because it seems to be to me to be tremendously diverse.
Yeah, well look, we maybe outline what we do in terms of a phrase from soil to gut. And to start at the soil, you know, soil's obviously the start of everything involved with food production. There's a huge amount of science that goes into figuring out how to make our soils work better, how to keep them healthy and so on. And that includes looking at the microbes in our soils and so on. You go from soils, then the soils are used to grow plants, whether that's grass or whether it's crops or horticulture products. So huge amount of issues there to be dealt with. We then go into the animals that might eat those crops, and right through then to the food products that are produced and how they impact on our health when we eat them. And so we've a big area of research has been that impact of food on our microbiome. So it spreads right throughout the whole food system, as we call it now.
Plenty of choice then for potential scholars out there looking in today to hone in on an area of interest to them.
Absolutely, and it can be very fundamental research, as I said, maybe looking at some very intricate aspect of soil biology or gut health, or it can be very applied research looking at, well, how can we get a field to grow more grass, or how can we get cows to use the grass that's grown in that field better.
Right.
So it can be, that range of very fundamental to very applied research.
And talk to us about the programme itself. You said it's the jewel in the crown, as it were. What's in it for potential Walsh scholars, and what kind of support can they expect to receive?
Okay, so as I said, every year we would have about 60 to 70 positions available in the Walsh Scholarship programme. And somebody that comes in to do a Walsh Scholarship, they're going to come into one of our research centres more than likely. And while we're not the biggest research organisation in the world, like we're only a small country, we do have facilities that are world class. So you're going to come into a world class research centre with great facilities, state-of-the-art facilities. Our scientists would be, as good as any in the world. So you're going to be working then with a team of scientists, both in our research centres, but you'll also then have a link back to a university where you'll have another supervisor. So it's a fantastic, I suppose, collaboration between ourselves and the universities. And the students come into this network in any of our research centres where there's going to be a team, maybe up to 40, 50 other people doing PhDs. They're going to be interacting on a day-by-day basis with some of the best scientists in the world, and they're going to have fantastic facilities, and they're going to be working on a problem or an issue or an opportunity that's of real significance to the agriculture and food industry, to the environment, to our country as a whole. So it's a fantastic opportunity for somebody to do further study after their degree, and the opportunities that it will open up for them afterwards, I think, are fantastic.
And it's a passport, isn't it, to work anywhere in the world in various positions, and we'll talk to Professor Jerry Boyle a little more about that later on. But just talk to us then about the gold medal, because from the scholars, from those winners, we will pick one gold medal winner, isn't that right?
That's right, yeah. Look, we've always honoured our scholars through the presentation of a gold medal to somebody that we would pick out as meriting that award, and that's been offered for the last 27 years. And look, it's a great honour, I think, for anybody to have received that, because it means that you've been selected as having done a fantastic job while you're doing your PhD. But I suppose we feel all our PhD students do fantastic work, and we'd love to honour them all, but you can't give everybody a gold medal. So this year anyway, we have changed the way we select the gold medal winner, and we have a process now that is not just based on how somebody might present on the day, but really we look at the competences that somebody might have developed while they're doing their PhD, and we put a lot of effort into training people, not just on the bit of research they're doing, but on all the other areas that they should develop in as they're entering into the early stages of their career. So we want to assess how well they have picked up on those competences and those transferable skills, and we take all those into account. And we had a competition then involving I suppose the heats were the 4 research programs that we have in Teagasc, and we'll talk about those in a few minutes. So each program had its own heat, and we selected a number of people from that. And then we brought in 2 very high-powered external people to evaluate the winners from each program, from the heats. And that was Professor Anita Maguire, who's the Vice President of Research in UCC, and Richard Kennedy, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Devonish Nutrition. And so with that high-powered team, we selected who among all the heat winners was going to be the recipient of this year's gold medal.
Okay.
But they're all medal winners in my mind.
Of course they are. And we'll hear from Anita and Richard in just a moment. But first, you want to say a little bit about the bursary, because our award winners, they do go home with a lovely plaque, but there's also a bursary involved.
That's right, yeah. And look, everybody, I suppose, the big thing about this is really the recognition that you get from being selected, and whether you're somebody that was selected in the heats or somebody that will eventually get the gold medal. But still, you know, we all like something a bit more tangible than the reputational enhancement. So we're very lucky that Devonish Nutrition have sponsored bursaries for each of the programme winners here today. So they'll walk away with a monetary award as well.
And the Institute for Food Science as well, I gather they played a role.
That's right. For many, many years, the Institute of Food Science and Technology in Ireland has also presented an award to the best scholar in the food area. So today, the winner of our food programme award will be also the recipient of the award from the Institute of Food Technology.
You mentioned Anita and Richard, and they played an absolute blinder in all of this. Let's hear from Anita and Richard now.
I was delighted to have an opportunity to meet with and to interview the shortlisted finalists for this year's Teagasc Walsh Scholars of the Year competition. I was extremely impressed by the talent and enthusiasm of the early career researchers I met. I was particularly struck by the breadth of strategically important areas of research which were being investigated by this group of researchers. In UCC, we're delighted to be a key partner of this programme. It's an important element of our research landscape. And I'd like to take this opportunity to wish each one of the scholars the very best of luck in completing their research studies and in their future careers. I have no doubt that they will go on to develop very exciting and productive careers into the future.
Hello. We at Devonish are delighted to be associated with the Teagasc Walsh Scholarship Programme this year. We were also pleased to be involved in the interview process for the shortlisted candidates and listen to the excellent papers and research that is ongoing today across Teagasc. I would like to personally wish the scholars the very best in the future, because we at Devonish know that the future of Irish agriculture and food is very much in your hands. The enthusiasm, the entrepreneurial spirit, and the appetite to find new methods and knowledge is fundamental to the future of that industry. And it's safe in your hands. Congratulations all, and the very best of luck in the future.
So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to our first award. This is Walsh Scholar of the Year for Animal and Grassland Research and Innovation Programme. Frank, tell us more about this category.
Okay, so animal and grassland, as the name implies, this is where we do all our research related to animal production and to grassland. So the end users of this research would be our dairy, our beef, our sheep and our pig farmers. And the type of work that goes on in this, it ranges from, you know, very detailed work maybe at the micro level down at some aspect of animal nutrition or animal health or animal welfare, so maybe pig nutrition or calf welfare or whatever, right then through to, you know, how do we grow and utilise grass better? So, and how do we maybe bring something like clover into a grazing system? How do we get more utilisation of grass? How do we manage that better? What decision support tools can we develop? How can we predict grass better? And then right through at the very end, how do we put a whole package together and how do we farm a system? So you could be comparing different farming systems. Like we have, we'll say, in our beef programme, we compare different farming systems in our dairy pasture herd, or we do similar things in our dairy and sheep herd. So it's a range from the very micro, maybe the macro, the cellular level, right up to the whole farm level of research. Anything to do with animals or grass production in this programme.
So very, very comprehensive area of research. Let's find out who our finalists are in this category.
Hi everyone, my name is Paul Smith. I'm a final year PhD student in Teagasc Grange, and my project aims to better understand the biological mechanisms surrounding methane production and feed efficiency in beef cattle.
Claire Fitzpatrick, and my project aims to evaluate commercially available teat disinfectants against the most prevalent mastitis-causing bacteria in an Irish dairy context.
Hello, my name is Darren Murphy, and my PhD focuses on the optimization of grass measurement techniques through field experimentation and numerical simulation methods.
So those are our finalists in this category. Frank, do the honours and announce our winner, please.
Okay, so the winner in the Animal and Grassland Research Innovation Programme is Paul Smith.
Hey!
Paul, you're there. Well done, congratulations. I'm going to have a chat with you in just a moment, but first of all, let's remind our viewers about your project.
Just under 19% of Ireland's greenhouse gas emissions are produced by microbes which live in the rumen or forestomach of ruminant livestock. And indeed, while these microbes play a key role in the ability of cattle and sheep to break down grass and convert it into dairy and meat proteins for human consumption, some members of this microbial population are also associated with carbon dioxide and methane production. Indeed, methane production is actually the second most important greenhouse gas in terms of global warming, and it is 28 times more potent to the environment than carbon dioxide. And finally, the whole production of methane within the rumen is actually energetically wasteful, with an estimated 12% of the animal's gross energy intake being diverted away from animal performance and lost to the atmosphere in the form of methane production. Indeed, what my project aims to do is better understand the biological mechanisms surrounding methane production in beef cattle. And to do this, we are undertaking a three-tiered approach. Firstly, we are measuring methane production in beef cattle to try and identify animals which are divergent in their level of methane production. And we're doing this at the ICBF Progeny Test Centre in Tully, and we're using the green feed system to estimate methane output from beef cattle. Secondly, we're trying to see if there's a difference in the microbial population of animals which are divergent in their level of methane production. And then finally, we're trying to see if there's a genetic element which is controlling both the composition of the microbiome and the animal's level of methane production. And indeed, findings from this project will play a key role, or have the potential to play a key role, in Ireland's ambition to be carbon neutral by 2050, and they'll do this by reducing the amount of greenhouse gas emissions which are produced by ruminant livestock. And finally, it has the ability to increase on-farm profitability by enhancing feed efficiency. So basically, trying to identify animals which have the ability to better retain that energy which would otherwise be lost to the atmosphere as methane production.
Paul Smith, well done. Congratulations to you.
Thanks very much, Sharon. I'm absolutely delighted.
This is a red hot issue right now, isn't it? Reducing emissions and a big spotlight on dairy farms. Was that the impetus for your research?
Yeah, Sharon, big time. It's definitely a hot topic within the industry. So, as I said in the video, about 19% of our greenhouse gas emissions are arising from ruminant livestock. So, be that dairy animals, beef animals, or sheep. So it's quite a hot topic in the area, and it's something that's definitely going to be around for another while anyway.
Yeah, and we hear a lot about having to reduce our methane in particular because it's good for the environment. But you also set out in your project there that there's also a cost benefit to the farmer.
Yeah, so basically when the animal's emitting methane, that's basically energy being lost to the environment. So if we can identify animals that basically produce less methane, we're basically also identifying animals which hopefully will better retain energy. So basically we'll need to feed animals less food to get the same level of animal performance, which subsequently will have a benefit then in terms of on-farm profitability for the farming community.
Really interesting. So a financial gain. And is that message, is it adequately understood among the farming community?
Yeah, well, look, I suppose it is something that we could possibly, my own project is trying to get out there to the farming community, I suppose. So we're not going to release just the results of our project just yet, but it does look kind of promising in the early stages. So I suppose that is something that we will hopefully be able to release when we present the papers on this project.
Okay, very, very interesting. So what's in store for you then, Paul? What's the plan?
Yeah, Sharon, I suppose the main aim at the moment is just to get the PhD done. So we have about a year left in the PhD, and then once that's done, I suppose then I'll start worrying about maybe trying to get a job after that. But for the main focus for the time being is just get the PhD done, and then we'll worry about jobs hopefully after that.
And how did you find the whole Walsh Scholar experience? We have prospective students tuning in today. Any advice from them? We have Frank here. We have Professor Jerry Boyle. Any constructive feedback that you want to relay to them?
Oh, well, it has been a fantastic process in fairness, Sharon. It's been brilliant. We're given expertise from a variety of different key people within the scientific community and within the industry as well. So it's been fantastic. It's really been a rewarding kind of process, and it is. I'd recommend anybody that's definitely looking to do a PhD or a master's to definitely consider doing the Teagasc Walsh Scholar program, because it's fantastic. There's super support network there, and supervisors are absolutely brilliant, and it really is it's a great organisation to be a part of.
Well, Paul Smith, congratulations to you. And I'm reliably informed by Erin here that you're all very quiet out there in Zoom land. And to get your questions in using the Q&A function on Zoom, because Paul Smith and our other Walsh Scholars will be only too delighted to answer your questions when we get to the Q&A section in just a little while. For the moment, Paul, thank you, congratulations, and well done. Now, our next award is the Walsh Scholar of the Year for the Crops, Environment and Land Use Programme. And Frank, am I right in saying that there was a lot of interest in this particular category?
Absolutely. Look, the Crops, Environment and Land Use Programme, as the name implies, it's any of the research that we do related to crop production, whether that's tillage crops or horticultural crops or indeed forestry. But also, there's a huge part of this programme related to the environment. And we all know that there's a strong relationship between agriculture and the environment, and there's lots of issues that we have to work on there, whether it's water quality or biodiversity or indeed greenhouse gas emissions, as we've just been talking about. So this programme is where we carry out a lot of that research, obviously, as you can see, in collaboration with our animal and grassland team as well. So,
okay, well, let's find out who our finalists are in this particular category.
My name is Teagasc. My project looks at the effect of soil pH and phosphorus availability in soil and their influence on the production of nitrous oxide by soil microbes.
I am Edward Wilson, and I'm studying an approach to sustainable forest management called continuous cover forestry, which is being used to enhance the resilience and diversity of Ireland's productive forests.
I'm Emily Masters-Clark, and I'm working on soil microbial interactions. Just like our gut, we need diverse communities of microbes in the soil to keep it healthy and to preserve its function. I'm looking at understanding the interactions between the beneficial microbes in the soil so that we might harness these benefits and improve crop growth. And then we can use the knowledge to make improvements to our sustainable agricultural practices.
So those are our finalists. Frank, do the honours, please.
So the winner in the Crops, Environment and Land Use category is Marichel Grau.
Marichel Grau, congratulations. The trickiest part of my job today is pronouncing your name correctly, okay? So forgive me if I give it I'm giving it the Irish kind of pronunciation. Well done, Marichel. Let's hear a little bit more about your project.
Nitrous oxide is a potent greenhouse gas, about 300 times more harmful than carbon dioxide. One of the main sources of nitrous oxide is agricultural soils. This is due to the presence of microbes present in the soil. These microbes present in the soil are influenced by their environment, so soil management, agriculture practices will affect the microbes producing N2O. Therefore, this might lead to higher or lower N2O emissions. My project is focusing on how soil pH and phosphorus fertilizer application might influence microbes to produce higher or lower nitrous oxide rates. Apart from measuring and analyzing how much N2O is being produced by the soil, I also analyze the microbes present in the soil to have a better understanding what microbes are involved in the process and how they are responding to the different pH and phosphorus treatments. To do this, we extract DNA from the soil that allows us to ID the different microbes present on them. So I'll just show you an example on how I measure the N2O production. This is part of an incubation experiment. We put soil from the field into the flasks. These flasks are completely gas sealed, which allows us to make sure we can collect all the N2O being produced inside the flask, as well as keeping the optimal conditions for nitrous oxide to be produced by the microbes. This includes low oxygen levels, fair amount of waterlogged soil, and different nutrients to ensure the microbes are not being stuffed. These flags are being shaken and sampled every hour for 5 hours. And to do this and get the gas sample, I use these gas vials and a syringe. So I put the gas vial from the soil flask into here. These gas vials collect the N2O and then they are analyzed to check the levels of N2O production in a gas chromatography. After this, I can do the analysis and see how different pH levels as well as phosphorus application fertilizer rates influence the production of the N2O, as well as linking these levels to the microbes ID'd from the soil.
Again, Merit Rachel, congratulations, well done. And again, another critically important area of research, arguably the burning issue of our day, reducing the levels of this particularly nasty greenhouse gas.
Yeah, definitely. Nitrous oxide sometimes is not as known or popular when it comes to the greenhouse gas, but it's one definitely of the more harmful ones, even higher than carbon dioxide. So it's definitely great to be able to work with that.
Right. And during your research, did you liaise? Did you interact with farmers? What kind of feedback did you get from them?
So I haven't been directly exposed to the farmer side of the project. However, I've had the chance to work with people all across Europe and New Zealand to gather soils with different pH ranges and different agriculture managements to see how these impact the production of the nitrous oxide. So it's definitely been a great experience to learn from different agriculture managements and ways of doing things.
Really interesting. So presumably we have different soil types depending on the region, depending on the type of farming involved here, all giving off different levels of this nitrous oxide.
Yeah, definitely. pH is known as one of the key factors that influence the production of nitrous oxide. So being able to see how the pH ranges changes across the whole world gives a much better idea on how this can be improved, on how the management of pH can be taken advantage of to make agriculture more sustainable and ensure that those levels of nitrous oxide can be more controlled.
And what's the plan, Merit Rachel? What would you like to do with this cutting-edge pioneering research that you've carried out?
Hopefully keep adding information to the field. Soil is really complex, everything influences something else. So there's never enough done. So definitely just keep exploring and having a much better understanding on how the microbes are reacting and responding to these changes. Because like any other living organism, their environment influences how they are living. So there's never enough known about them.
Right. And you did your research, I gather, for the most part in Johnstown Castle in County Wexford, Merit Rachel. You're in Spain right now, but we look forward to welcoming you back when this awful pandemic is over. Congratulations, Merit Rachel, and we'll speak to you a little later on. And remember, get your questions in to us, to Paul and to Merit Rachel and to the other Walsh Scholars. For the moment, Merit Rachel, apologies for your the pronunciation of your name, and we'll chat to you a little later on. Now, up next is the Food Programme Walsh Scholar of the Year. And Frank, tell us a little bit more about what kind of research we saw here.
Okay, so in the food programme, this is where we carry out any research, I suppose, to support the food industry. And that ranges from research in the whole food chemistry and food technology area. How do we process our food so that, you know, there's a better either nutritional value or a better taste experience when consumers eat them. It ranges from that. It ranges through the food safety aspects, you know, so that we research around packaging and storage of foods and contaminants and residues and so on. And then into the area of how food impacts on our health, so food for health. And that obviously is around nutrition, but it's also as well into areas of how the food that you eat impacts on the microbiome in your gut and how that can influence your health and your mental health and that. So very broad area.
Fascinating. Let's find out who the finalists were in this category.
I'm Claude Walsh. My project is interactions of human milk oligosaccharides with probiotic bacteria and their potential application for the advancement of infant nutrition.
My name is William McCarthy. I'm a PhD student in Teagasc Park, affiliated with the Technological University Dublin. My research focuses on a chemical contaminant called chloride within the dairy supply chain.
I'm Gemma, and my project focuses on the development of a rapid method for the detection of nitrofuran residues in food of animal origin.
Frank, who is the Walsh Scholar in the food programme?
Sharon, the winner in the food programme is Gemma Regan.
Well done, Gemma.
Thank you so much.
Gemma, we'll have a little chat with you in just a moment, but let's show our viewers what your research was all about.
Nitrofurans are a class of antibiotics that were previously licensed for the prevention and control of disease and also as food additives for growth stimulation. However, it was found that food produced from these animals contained residues that were toxic, and for this reason, nitrofurans have been completely banned from use on several continents in food produced in animals. Since nitrofurans are now classed as a zero-tolerance substance, the methodology in place needs to be incredibly sensitive to detect very low levels in food, and for this reason, we use LCMSMS, which stands for Liquid Chromatography Tandem Mass Spectrometry, which is just basically a very comprehensive and powerful tool that allows us to detect these levels. Since their ban, the majority of methods for nitrofuran analysis have focused primarily on just 4 main compounds, and the analysis has been very time-consuming. So the objectives of my work were to extend the scope of nitrofuran analysis and also to reduce the sample turnaround times. So in my work, I've included an additional 4 nitrofuran residues. So now my method detects 8 nitrofuran drugs as opposed to 4 drugs. I've also made changes to the sample preparation approach. So traditionally, the majority of methods for nitrofuran analysis include a 16-hour overnight derivatization step that takes place in a water bath. This step is crucial because it basically converts the residues into a form that can be detected by our instrument. I've swapped this out for a microwave-assisted reaction, which has reduced the derivatization time down from 16 hours to just 13 minutes. I've also made changes to the extraction approach. So conventionally, the majority of methods would use a double liquid-liquid extraction, whereas now I'm using something called a Ketchers-based approach. And Ketchers stands for quick, easy, cheap, effective, rugged, and safe. And that speaks for itself. It's just an incredibly efficient way of extracting residues out of food for detection. As well as it being a lot quicker, it's also greener because the conventional approach would use about 18 ml of solvent per sample, whereas now I'm only using 10. So all in all, this method is a lot quicker and efficient, and it has reduced the sample turnaround times from 4 days to just 1.5 days. So the impact of this work is that you're ensuring consumer safety and consumer confidence in their food, but you're also ensuring much smoother trade because
food would have to be held at the likes of ports for much shorter times before it is deemed safe to enter into the Irish food market.
Gemma, well done, congratulations. So essentially this is it's a food safety issue, but there's also integrity and reputation involved, and protecting our clean, green image that we have in this country.
Exactly, especially because Ireland's agricultural exports are so important. It's really important to have very rapid and reliable methods in order to test our food and, as you say, protect our reputation.
And tell us a little bit about how you went about your research. Was there much interaction with the farming community? I'm just wondering, is this a sensitive one for them?
And not so much with the farming community. I wouldn't have had that much contact from that point of view. But as you say, in terms of protecting reputation, this is all everybody involved in the process. It's, you know, for their greater good too, to ensure that their food is safe, especially if farmers are putting in a lot of effort to ensure they are kind of maintaining legislation and going by the guidelines. It's important for them also to prove that they are putting in that hard work and that they are reliable and their food is safe.
Really innovative area of research. What was the inspiration, Gemma?
So my background was biochemistry, but I was always really interested in analytical chemistry. And when I saw this project that was advertised, it really struck a chord, because nitrofurans are a hot topic. They are completely banned, which means the methods are so important to ensure that food is safe. So I just feel very lucky to have been involved and have gotten the opportunity to explore such a great topic.
And presumably now the world is your oyster. I mean, do you know which area you would like to work in? Would you like to stay, for example, in farming, or presumably you could work in anti-doping or anything at this point?
I think the kind of the specifics I'm not entirely sure of, but I know throughout my project I've just really loved the whole process of method development. So I think I would love to stay in that realm. I do love residue analysis because it is so important. Food is something that everybody needs, and it is always going to be such an important topic. So I think if I managed to, I'd love to stay in this sort of department for sure.
Well, very interesting, and thank you indeed. And we will get to talk a little more to Gemma in just a couple of minutes, but do get your questions in. I'm told that you're very shy out there in Zoom land today, so I would encourage you to get your questions in, and we'll put all our Walsh Scholars on the spot, as it were, a little later on. Gemma, for the moment, well done, and congratulations. Next up, it's the Rural Economy and Development Programme, and Frank is going to enlighten us about this particular area of research.
So, rural economy and development, it covers a number of really important areas. So obviously the kind of profitability or the economics of farming systems, whether that's at the individual farm level that we might measure through the National Farm Survey, or whether it's at a whole sector level. And you can just think of all the issues like Brexit and trade deals and so on that we need to be able to understand how they might impact on the economics of the farm or the whole sector. It goes from that thing to things like how do we develop Ireland's circular bioeconomy. It goes through rural development and how are our rural communities changing, health and safety, spatial analysis, or how can we use imagery from satellites or drones to help the agricultural process. And lastly, ending at the whole innovation process, and how can we best, as an organisation that wants to support farmers to change, how can we present information better to them? How can we involve farmers or other end users in implementing solutions on the ground, either individually or as groups?
Right, okay, very interesting. Let's find out who the finalists were in this particular category.
My name is Richa Marwaha. My research is to develop a model which can predict grass growth across Irish farms using satellite images. This work will eventually help farmers to get a clear understanding of grass production across their farms.
Diana van Doorn. I'm part of the Farmers of Hearts Cardiovascular Health Programme, and I assess the programme's effectiveness on health behaviour change among Irish livestock farmers.
I'm Adrian Attorp, and my research aims to increase understanding of the agri-environmental policy-making process in Ireland and Northern Ireland in order to improve management of diffuse agricultural pollution in the island of Ireland's transboundary waterways.
Frank, do the honours for us in this particular category.
Okay, so the winner of the Rural Economy and Development Programme is Adrian Attorp.
Well done, Adrian. Congratulations.
Thanks so much.
Adrian, you're tuned in to us today from, is it Scotland, is it?
Newcastle. Oh, we like to think that we're in Scotland sometimes, but no, Newcastle upon Tyne.
Well, close enough. You're very welcome. Let's remind our viewers, Adrian, a little bit more about your project.
Ireland and Northern Ireland share over 120 waterways. Co-managing these presents many challenges, but also opportunities. One of the biggest challenges is regulating diffuse agricultural pollution, the main source of water pollution on the island of Ireland. Whose problem is it? How is it regulated? Who makes those decisions? And how will Brexit impact this? I've spent the past 3 years researching these questions, undertaking interviews and focus groups with stakeholders on both sides of the border. The goal? Help policymakers and farmers alike navigate challenges such as changes in trade conditions and policy, so farmers north and south of the border can collaboratively thrive while also protecting the island's waterways. Early findings show that, in terms of decision-making, the agricultural lobby has a loud voice across the island. In the south, that's mainly the dairy industry, and in the north, both dairy and poultry are considered big players. Economics plays a big role here. Those industries that are the most economically viable tend to have the most influence. Market factors also play a big role in directing policy and strategy. However, who is left out of the policy-making conversation seems to be just as important as who leads on it. In both Ireland and Northern Ireland, this is small, extensive, part-time farmers, many of whom are in the dry stock industry. These farmers are often falling through the cracks in terms of policymaking and waterway management initiatives, which is a challenge because they are often causing just as many water pollution problems as their more intensive counterparts. They often farm on hilly land with poor soils, meaning there is a higher risk of nutrient runoff into waterways, particularly a problem in the border regions. Further, although most of these farmers do want to farm well, time and financial constraints often prevent them from implementing best practice. So what does this mean for policy? Northern Ireland and Ireland need to identify effective ways to engage these farmers in order to address ongoing waterway issues. Timing is right for this, given the need to address imminent Brexit challenges. The structure and know-how are there. Existing initiatives such as ASAP and catchment care provide great examples to build on.
Adrian, well done. And again, very topical. We hear a lot about emissions and trying to reach certain targets, less about water quality, but it's critically important, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, water quality, like as I said in the video, there's over 120 waterways that the two countries share. And, there's, on top of those having, like just the environmental impact of making sure those are clean, there's so many regulations that each country is responsible for meeting, and that not meeting those has big knock-on effects on whether they're able to continue to grow as industries and remain economically viable.
And how generally are we doing? How do we perform on that? Are our waterways clean? We're not laggards in Europe, are we, like we are in the emissions?
Ireland, well, there are some high quality, like there's a variety of categories within the Water Framework Directive, and Ireland does have quite a few high quality waterways still, but a lot of the pressure is on those waterways. So there've been a lot of improvements made in the recent decades in terms of reducing the number of low quality waterways, but the pressure on the very top quality waterways remains, and that really needs to be addressed moving forward.
Interesting. And were you suggesting that we have our dry stock farmers, we have our dairy farmers, and maybe in dairy that there's a little bit more application, as it were, in terms of sticking by what we're meant to do?
It's not so much that the dairy farmers are doing things great and the dry stock farmers aren't. I don't mean to insinuate that at all. It's more that I guess there's closer regulatory attention paid to what's happening in the dairy industry, because there's such a strong link, or a kind of a traditional acceptance that intensive agriculture really results in water pollution. Whereas, as I've said, it's not just about intensity, it's often about land base and so on. But because there's stronger regulation and a kind of in many ways stronger understanding of that link between intensity and water pollution, there's been more focus on trying to engage dairy farmers in mitigating their water pollution. Whereas actually, dry stock farmers can cause quite a lot of problems too, just simply because of the land base they're on a lot of the time.
Right, and of course you looked at all of this through the prism of Brexit, the dreaded B word, and I'm judging from your accent you were able to approach all this without the sort of baggage that maybe might be brought to it in any other context. So what are the key lessons there?
Well, I mean, if you can tell us what's happening with Brexit, Sharon, that would be fantastic. But it's so much is up in the air still around that. And really what this research has done is try and figure out the existing kind of things that are going well, things that could be improved, so that whatever happens with Brexit moving forward, the Northern Ireland and Ireland will be able to effectively collaborate to meet those challenges. Because even when we know what's happening with the trade deals and so on, it's still going to take time for those to play out. So we really can only work with what we know, and that's what this research is aimed for. And yeah, being not Irish or British has I've had, as you said, less baggage in terms of asking some of the trickier questions, but it's been a pretty steep learning curve also, trying to figure out the cultural context and the political context, which I maybe didn't have a grounding in beforehand. So this kept things interesting.
Very interesting. And as we know, waterways, they don't recognize borders. So it will be very, very important to us post-Brexit. Get your questions in to Adrian, because we will be chatting to her a little later on. Don't be shy. Get your questions in. They can even be anonymous, and we will put them to Adrian and our other Walsh Scholars a little later on. For the moment, Adrian, well done. And thank you.
Thanks so much.
Right. Thank you, Adrian. Our final award here is for the Knowledge Transfer Programme. Frank, tell us more.
Okay, so the 4 programs or 4 categories we've had so far have been our 4 research programs. Teagasc is also an organisation with a large mandate for advisory work or extension work or knowledge transfer. So we run a number of programs every year where we bring in students to carry out masters in knowledge transfer. So that's the application, or how do we better transfer the knowledge that we're generating to the end users. So this category is selecting the winner from those particular students.
Okay, let's find out who our finalists are.
My name is Sean McMahon, and my research focused on investigating the potential influence of social media to promote grass measuring and support farmer decision making.
My name is Kevin Marr, and the aim of my research was to look at the factors that affect nitrates to irrigation farmers using their nutrient management plans as a decision making tool on fertiliser.
My name is John McGuire. My research aims to highlight the necessary steps for the successful adoption of a problem-based learning and teaching approach within the Teagasc education environment. Particular emphasis is placed on the teacher and how we can best equip them to facilitate this transition.
Now, Frank is going to reveal our winner in this category.
So, the winner of the Knowledge Transfer Programme Award is Kevin Maher.
Kevin, well done.
Thank you very much.
You almost look surprised there.
I'm delighted.
We'll have a little chat with you in just a moment, but first, let's find out a little bit more about Kevin's work.
The overall research aim of my project was to look at the factors that affect nitrates to irrigation farmers using their nutrient management plans as a decision-making tool on fertiliser. The study also looked at farmers' familiarity of their own nutrient management plans. It also looked at nitrates to irrigation farmers' opinions towards nutrient management plans, and then it also looked at how much farmers value the information within their nutrient management plans. So the overall population for the study included 40 nitrates to irrigation farmers, 20 dairy farmers from County Wexford and 20 beef farmers from County Kilkenny. And then the data for this research was collected via phone surveys. So some of the key findings from this study. So the study revealed that farmers have a good understanding on why it's actually important to follow nutrient management plans. Almost all farmers who completed the survey said that they understand why it's important to follow nutrient management plans and soil sample recommendations. However, there still remains to be a gap with farmers understanding why it's important to follow nutrient management plans and actually doing this at farm level. The study also revealed that the main reason farmers have developed nutrient management plans is due to policy requirements. It also identified that farmers place a higher weighting on soil sample recommendations when making decisions on fertiliser compared to using a nutrient management plan when making decisions on fertiliser. Finally, the factor of age was identified as having a negative effect on farmers using nutrient management plans and soil sample recommendations when making decisions on fertiliser. So only 40% of farmers over the age of 50 said that they strictly based their fertiliser applications on either soil sample recommendations or on nutrient management plans. So finally, to conclude, agricultural extension, education, and social pressures all have a really important role to play in trying to increase the uptake of the use of nutrient management plans and soil sample recommendations at farm level.
So again, Kevin, well done. Congratulations. And you hit on something really important there. Again, it's the environment, it's the challenges of meeting our targets. Was that the inspiration for your project?
Yeah, absolutely. So like actually what we heard from Adrian just there before me, water quality is obviously a massive issue in Ireland. So I believe that nutrient management plans are going to have a really big role to play in developing sustainable agriculture going forward. Like we look at some of the targets coming down the line, like look for instance what's coming from the EU. Look at the EU farm to fork strategy, that it's setting out targets such as reducing our chemical fertilizer input by 20%, which is going to be a huge challenge. So we really need to rethink how we're doing things and look at new ways of let's say doing things and planning out what way we use our fertilizer. So I think nutrient management plans will have a really big role to play in doing that.
So a real theme emerging today, Kevin, and you hit on a sort of an age-old thing there, that farmers, like us all, we know what we should do, but there's a bit of a gap there between knowing what we should do and actually following through. So how do we get around that particular problem?
Yeah, so like the research, it showed that farmers understand why it's important to follow our nutrient management plans and why it's it's important to take soil samples and follow the recommendations that come from these soil samples. But there's still that gap from actually understanding why it's important and actually bringing this into practice at farm level. So I think it's just going to come down to education, extension, and also social pressures will also have a big part to play. So like, I don't think farmers have no problem doing something when they understand why they have to do it. So it's really just coming down to actually educating the farmer, and once they have a good understanding, they'll be able to implement that then at farm level.
Did you enjoy your research, Kevin? Did you enjoy your time on the programme? Any advice to prospective students looking in today?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I know, as Frank said there, I'm a little bit different compared to the other four guys that we heard from there today. That obviously this is a master's program. It was a 2-year program, but also it's a little bit different in the fact that I was also placed in two advisory offices, two Teagasc advisory offices. So I was in County Kilkenny for year 1, and I was in Enniscorthy for year 2. So like you really get a sense of actually working in an advisory office on how these environments work, and you really get to develop, obviously from a technical point of view, you really get to kind of learn a lot from that side of it, but also there's huge opportunity to develop like your competency skills and life skills, like learning how to work in an environment and learning how to communicate with colleagues, but also with farmers and with clients. So no, I couldn't recommend it highly enough. If there is anyone out there, like, I know it's strange looking at a screen, you've no idea who's at the other side of it, but if there is anyone there considering to going for the knowledge transfer master's program, I really couldn't recommend it highly enough.
That sounds like a ringing endorsement. Just very quickly, am I to understand that you've left student life behind you now and you're now in the working world?
Yeah, so I'm in the real world. So obviously I'm finished my master's now, but I took up a role with Food Drink Ireland back in March. So those maybe that aren't familiar with Food Drink Ireland, we're the main trade association for the food and drink industry in Ireland. And we work through IBEC, so maybe you probably have heard of IBEC in the news quite a lot lately, particularly with Brexit and with COVID. So I've taken up the role there as the environmental sustainability executive. And again, it's starting in a new environment. You had to bring a lot of the skills that I developed from the master's program with me, so like building relationships with colleagues and just being able to communicate in a new working environment. And it also came with a couple of challenges as well, I suppose, where I started in March on a Monday, and on Friday we were told we have to work from home. So I've actually been working in this role from my kitchen table now for the last 8 months. So
like
no,
the
it's been
rest of
enjoyable.
the country.
Yeah, exactly.
Well done, Kevin. And remember, you can get your questions into us now because we're going to put them under pressure, as they say. Personally, Kevin, I want to ask you what the nutrient management plan was for your bonsai plant there behind you, because it's very impressive. But hang on, let's get our 5 Walsh Scholars back on screen. Congratulations to you all. Paul Smith, Meritachel Grau, Gemma Regan, Adrian Attorp, and Kevin, from whom we've just heard. I have a couple of questions in for Paul from Trevor. Methane, it's a relatively short-lived greenhouse gas. How did you take this into account in your studies? And what implication does this aspect have for the Irish ruminant industry that's trying to shake off its reputation as a high GHG polluter?
Super. Thanks for the easy question there, Trevor. I suppose the project that I'm working on, Trevor's dead right in what he's saying, that it is a short-lived greenhouse gas. It has a half-life of about 12 years in the atmosphere, and after that, methane is then converted to carbon dioxide. But I suppose the overall aim of my project is more just to look at the microbial level, what bugs are associated in the room and how they're producing methane. So not to try and sidestep Trevor's question too much, but that isn't, I'd say, I suppose, the key element of our project. Ours is just mainly to look at the biological mechanisms at the micro level, which are driving that methane production in animals.
Right. Another question, the whole idea of feeding seaweed to cows, we're told, is something that can reduce methane. Did that form part of your project, or at any point did you look at that, Paul?
Yeah, so not part of my project per se, but there is work currently going on in Teagasc that's looking at the role of seaweeds in reducing methane production. So there is a project called Sea Solutions, which is looking at that. So seaweeds definitely seem to have a role as a mitigation strategy. Some studies have shown that they can reduce methane by up to 80%. But I suppose the key thing that we need to look at with seaweeds is there going to be any negative effects on the products that the animals produce? So certain seaweeds can sometimes be high in heavy metals, and they can also be iodine as well. So we just need to make sure from a food safety point of view that there isn't going to be any implications of feeding seaweed to animals as a mitigation strategy. And I suppose finally as well, it's the whole kind of trying to produce enough seaweed to feed all the cattle in the world. Might be a bit of an issue, but I suppose at a local level in certain economies, certain regions of the world, seaweed definitely has the potential to play a role in reducing methane production.
Very good, Paul, and what a fabulous Dublin accent there. Good to see the Dubs involved in all of this. Paul, thank you. A question for Adrian, if she's there. A shy question poser here, Adrian. In terms of, they're anonymous, in terms of managing a water catchment for pollution, what kind of ways can policymakers help farmers come together, work together, collaborate on this?
So as I think I mentioned earlier, there are a few existing projects that are doing some great work already around this. I've worked specifically with the Catchment Care project, which is based out of the Agri-Food and Biosciences Institute in Belfast, but they are really looking at targeted measures to help beef farmers improve their land management. So it's, in terms of farmers working together, I think it is just shared initiatives such as Catchment Care that can help farmers, regardless of whether they're in Ireland or Northern Ireland, just improve their land management and water management practices.
And Adrian, they're presumably fully aware of the requirements and the benefits of clean waterways. That wasn't something that you needed to impress on them, presumably, or was it?
Oh no, absolutely not. All the farmers I spoke to are very aware that it's important to have clean water, and not just all the environmental issues that are associated with farming, biodiversity, water, climate change. They're all very queued up on that, but it's more using sort of science to help them better understand. You need data to be able to understand your impacts. So learning about their phosphorus levels in their soil or their water. So that's where we can kind of come in and help them learn what their actual kind of standards are at and how we can help them improve their practices. It's not about educating them about the importance of.
Right, and you mentioned earlier about Brexit. Is there any level of trepidation there, say south of the border in the Republic, about any potential changes north and south, in circumstances where we mightn't have, full environmental alignment and the potential impact on that in the Republic on water quality?
I would say there's sort of concern on both sides. So waterways in the west flow north to south across the border, roughly speaking, and then the east it's south to north. So there are concerns in terms of regulatory diversion. And I guess, again, just going back to what I was saying earlier about projects such as Catchment Care that are working with farmers on both sides of the border, catchments that straddle the border, those are just going to become all the more important in terms of helping farmers mitigate their pollution problems. And whether or not there is an extreme policy divergence, I think at the end of the day, for agriculture, it's important that the resource base that agriculture relies on is healthy. And so I'm just hopeful that will continue to be of utmost importance moving forward.
And presumably it's also an integral part of our clean green image that we like to portray abroad. Adrian, thank you so much for that. I have a question for Gemma, an anonymous source here asking, why do nitrofuran residues persist in food?
So basically, nitrofurans are classed as a prodrug, meaning that they're administered in their inactive form, and then once they're administered, they're rapidly metabolized into highly stable protein-bound metabolites. And the problem is with those is that once the edible tissues are consumed, the stomach acid can hydrolyze these and release these metabolites. And because there are concerns about the toxicological properties of these metabolites, that's why they are completely banned from use.
Right. And it's a tremendously innovative area of research that you've come up with, Gemma. I'm just wondering, where is the application for what you've learned? Is it at producer level? Could it be at, say, meat factory level? Where are the potential openings here for what you've just discovered?
Well, there's legislation out there which completely bans these from use. So it's applied everywhere that produces food from food producing animals. These need to be checked. So behind the scenes, maybe not a lot of people realize it, but your food is tested stringently across everywhere. No matter where you live in the world, your food has to be tested. It's particularly There are particularly strict guidelines in Europe. So say the likes of the residue analysis lab that I work in, they're getting thousands of samples every year that they're checking to make sure that each food sample sent in from farms, from factories, that they are free from these residues and keeping the consumers safe.
Right, and interesting, the very, very strong green theme emerging today, and yours is no different, because what you've come up with is a much greener analysis, I gather.
Yes, so one aspect of the project was to make it a lot more rapid, but in doing so, the changes that we've made to the method are a lot greener. So your solvent consumption per sample tested has been significantly reduced, which obviously every little helps. You know, we're trying to move forward to more sustainable methods.
Well done, congratulations. Again, I have a question here for Merit Tachel. Again, an anonymous source. They're all very shy out there in Zoom land. From your research on soil microbiome, do you think farmers should prioritise lime application?
So it's not more prioritizing the lime application per se. One of the main issues that leads to high nitrous oxide production is the excess nitrogen application. So because so much nitrogen is available in the soil, the microbes consume it before the plants, leading to those N2O productions. pH does have quite an impact and a key role on how this nitrous oxide is emitted on the soil, onto the atmosphere. So less acidic pHs would be better to reduce that greenhouse gas production. But I wouldn't be able to completely advise on how a specific lime application should be, but rather more trying to understand and finding those pH ranges that would be beneficial for the reduction of the gas.
Right, and did I understand you earlier? You're part, Merit Tachel, of a Europe-wide programme, is that correct?
Yeah, so my project is part of the MAGI pH project, which aims to further explore and understand how soil pH influence the production of nitrous oxide. So throughout Europe and New Zealand, we have different partners that have focused on different aspects of the project. I've had the chance to work on the molecular and microbial side of it, but there have been other places that focus more on the actual gas kinetics production from the soil, as well as modeling and other aspects on how everything can try to be linked more broadly throughout the world, keeping in mind all the different factors that might influence the production of nitrous oxide.
Very interesting. And as we said, it's a particularly noxious greenhouse gas, isn't it? So does your research have the potential to really reduce the sort of emissions that we're seeing from NTO?
Definitely, it's bringing a lot of light into how the environment for the microbes is and how those respond to what's being changed. So obviously agriculture is constantly evolving and management is having an impact directly on the soil throughout the years. So the more we understand now, the better we can evolve for more sustainable agriculture management.
Fantastic. A question, thank you, Merit Tachel. We have a question for Kevin. Again, it's anonymous. When you were collecting, Kevin, the data for your research, what would you say farmers' opinions were on the environment? How receptive were they, I guess, to hearing what you had to say?
Yeah, so I suppose, like you would have heard in my clip, I spoke with 40 nitrates derogation farmers, and the nitrates derogation farmers tend to get a bad rap. They tend to be the higher stock farmers with the higher inputs and higher usage of chemical fertilizer. But from speaking with the farmers on a one-to-one basis, like the general consensus I got from them is that they're aware of the environment, that they genuinely do want to do good, but it's just trying to figure out exactly why or how to put that into practice, I think is really the kind of the consensus I got from speaking with the farmers.
And did I see from your clip that there was an age factor in that, without offending anybody, that maybe the young were a little bit more receptive to your research than maybe the older farmers? Yeah, so I think it comes down to technology. So the younger farmers seem to have a better uptake of technology. And so the older farmers kind of found it a little bit harder to grasp the technology side of it.
And that's probably why there was a lower uptake on nutrient management plans from kind of the older age group of farmers.
Right. And how do you get around that then, Kevin? Presumably it's a gently approach, is it?
Yeah, so unfortunately there's no silver bullet. So like that, it'll come down to a combination of through the extension service from Teagasc, but also through education and I think patience as well. That's one of the big things, that you really need to have patience and kind of remember that a lot of this is quite new to farmers and they need to develop these skills and it will take time.
Okay, very good, very interesting. Thank you all our Walsh Scholars of the Year: Paul Smith, Mary Tachel Grau, Gemma Regan, Adrian Attorp, and lastly there, Kevin Marr. And before we announce our gold medal winner, which we will do in just a couple of minutes, we're going to have a little chat with the director of Teagasc, Professor Jerry Boyle. And Jerry, I think the Teagasc brand is safe, judging from the sort of ambassadors we've heard from today.
Absolutely, Sharon. You know, our business really is all about research and innovation, and I think we can be secure in the knowledge that the people we've just heard from will carry that message forward throughout their careers.
Because it's a real success story, isn't it? And something I hadn't realized until I just looked over the briefing notes. You have Walsh Scholars working in various positions of influence on every continent in the world, bar Antarctica, I'm told.
Yeah, we're particularly proud of that. I mean, the program was initiated, as Frank says, way back in 1993. And since then, we've graduated through the program about 1,200 scholars as such. And they are literally working in all sorts of sectors, from research, obviously, to university, to private sector in our dairy and beef processing industries. And they are literally scattered all over the world. And one recent development that we're very proud of, we started working in the last few years with Irish Aid, and particularly in Africa. And we've already had a number of Walsh Scholars based on the African continent. Right. And they have actually been here at Teagasc Oak Park as part of their studies. So that's another dimension.
Has left a global footprint.
Yeah, but we have benefited in the past. I mean, if you remember the transition of the Irish economy over time, you know, in the early 60s, a lot of our university graduates and people indeed that worked in the early days in An Foras Taluntas, as it then was, which was our research division, they would have gone to the United States through the Kellogg Foundation in similar type of programs that we now are operating ourselves.
So this is something that we invested in early on, presumably, and that is why we're seeing the sort of dividends we're seeing today. Is that it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's when you're engaged in the business of science and innovation, obviously you need top-class scientists by definition. So every institution in the world that it is developed through gradually progressing the scientific qualifications of their scientists. And we are now in the position where most of the scientists that are engaged in our research program all have doctorates. It's a requirement to be a permanent research officer in Teagasc. And through that promotion of excellence, obviously, we can then have the confidence that we can do the research which is the best scientifically, but also, of course, it's very important for us that it's relevant to society and our economy.
Right. And you are constantly, Jerry, trying to reach out and re-engage with alumni. What's the objective there?
Well, it's very simple. As I say, we have about 1,200 people who have graduated through the program, this particular program. There would have been a number of others in a smaller number, much smaller number in previous years. So we see that as a huge resource. And in 2018, we established an alumni program, basically to encourage people that have gone through the Walsh Scholarship program to become part of a network. And in that network is hugely beneficial, of course, to Teagasc itself, because someone said that that innovation is a contact sport.
Yes.
So having that network is really important when we're, say, trying to put together international programs that require collaboration. That be able to tap into that network is hugely important. We also think for the people that are members of the network, it's very important for themselves. And so that's essentially the objective. And we, as I say, we have some very distinguished people that have gone on to do great things throughout their careers, mainly in Ireland, but also internationally.
Right, and presumably that then is the inspiration for your awarding an Alum award, and we have one today, don't we? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the idea of the Alum Award then is to celebrate the achievements, the outstanding achievements of those scientists that have gone through the Walsh Scholarship Programme since the foundation of that programme. And as you can imagine, with that number of people and over that length of time, we have some exceptionally talented people, not only in terms of their scientific field, but also in terms of the leadership that they have demonstrated within their chosen professions. And we feel it's important and an inspiration to others, so the next generation. And this is what this event today is all about, to recognize those achievements. So we seek nominees every year. We don't always award make this a Distinguished Alum Award every year. It depends on the quality of the applicants and the nominees. And I'm glad to say this year we've had some really, really top-class people that have been nominated.
Okay, well, you've set out the perfect cue. Jerry, you might join us at the podium here, because you've set up really, really well the Alum Award winner for 2020. And I will ask you, Jerry, to look at the camera and announce who the winner is.
Okay, this is like the...
it's like the Oscars, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'm delighted to say that this year's Alum Award for the Teagasc Walsh Scholarships is awarded to Professor Carol Newman of Trinity College, Dublin.
Congratulations, Carol. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an absolute honor. I'm very, very grateful. I'm thrilled.
Brilliant. And tell us a little bit about your area of research. It's tremendously interesting. It's really the whole area of international development research.
Yes, indeed it is. And I think my time as a Walsh Fellow kind of paved the way for me to enter into this field of research. So I'm a development economist, and my work focuses on understanding, I guess, the constraints to development and what prevents people really from living optimal lives, I guess, as we might want to define it. So I'm very lucky that my work takes me all around the world. I have projects throughout Africa and in Southeast Asia, but really I look at the kind of micro foundations of development. So I still look a lot at the kind of rural economy and in developing countries, but also kind of branch into other sectors of the economy as well. So yes, that's it in a nutshell.
I'm just wondering, in this COVID environment, and as we look post-COVID, presumably your research will be particularly pertinent when we see the sort of impact this virus has had on the developing countries.
Indeed, and I mean there is a lot of ongoing work, even at the moment, trying to understand, the impact that COVID is having, because there are a lot more vulnerable people in very vulnerable settings. There are kind of social protection programs are clearly not as well developed in developing countries as they are in this part of the world. So yes, I think over the next few years you will see a lot of research looking at these impacts.
Very interesting. Jerry, have you a question for Professor Newman?
Yeah, I recall that I think I was on your examining committee for your PhD, I think. So it's really gratifying to see the achievements that you have made. I understand, Carol, you've been working in Vietnam. Isn't that right?
That's right,
Could you maybe tell us a little bit about the work you've been doing there?
Well, I started working in Vietnam, I think it was around 2006, and together with colleagues at the University of Copenhagen, we developed a very large-scale survey of rural households. And our aim was really to understand how rural households were faring, if you like, in Vietnam. And I guess in the last round of the survey was just 2 years ago. So over the course of that 10, 12 years, we really got a picture of how the rural economy in Vietnam was developing at a time when the overall economy was growing extremely fast. So we followed, I think, 3,500 households over that period, spread out over the whole of Vietnam. And we were interested in looking at things like, agricultural development, structural transformation, household welfare. We were looking at things like the welfare of children, the welfare of women within households. So we really built up this very massive database that really tracked the evolution of those households over time. So that was one particularly interesting project that we worked on there. We also worked on other projects with ethnic minorities up in the Northern Highlands in Vietnam, where we were trying to kind of alleviate some of the stigma and pressures that were on ethnic minority households in terms of engaging in business, in terms of finding jobs, and so on and so forth. So we had another project that we ran up in Northern Vietnam in that area. But one of the key things for all of these projects and the projects I work on in the rest of the world is the engagement with the policymakers, engagement with government. So from the outset, they were involved in kind of designing, research questions that were of importance for them in the design of their policies. And of course, when we produced our academic research papers at the end of it, we also produced policy briefs and had kind of policy dissemination seminars. So I think that my experience, certainly as a Walsh Fellow, that's the first kind of exposure I had to doing research that was policy relevant. And I have to say, I definitely carried that with me throughout my career so far.
Carol, that's what I was going to ask you about your time as a Walsh Scholar. What was the particular area of research that you focused on during that time? Was it development studies?
It wasn't development studies at all, but it was, it's what I focused on then was actually about looking at food demand and kind of understanding why people demand certain types of food and not other types of food and so on. But the one thing that it did involve was looking at large data sets and really trying to build demand systems and so on. So I got a lot of technical skills from that process that really helped me. But like when I became an assistant professor in Trinity, after that, like I continued to work with the Walsh Fellowship Programme because I supervised a number of PhD students who worked on other topics, maybe related more to working with the National Farm Survey, for example, working with the European data on farms. So all of that, I think, really helped to contribute to kind of my interest in microeconomics and microeconometrics in particular.
And Carol, just lastly and very briefly, we spoke to Jerry about the passport that you get as a Walsh Scholar in terms of where it allows you work around the globe. Just very quickly, give us a flavour of the countries you've worked in.
Well, the countries that I have projects in, past and present, Uganda and Senegal, Ethiopia, South Africa, Togo, Vietnam, Cambodia. So I've had active projects in all of those countries, which has been just it's an amazing experience to have been able to do fieldwork there.
Well, it's an amazing experience to talk to you today, Professor Newman. Congratulations, well done, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very, very much. I'm absolutely honoured.
Thank you, and congratulations again, Carol, and thank you very much, Jerry. Now we're on to our gold medal winner. We heard from our 5 category finalists there. We're going to bring them back up on screen, I gather, thanks to the wizardry of Declan McCardle there. We have all our finalists back up on screen. And to the victor, the spoils, Professor O'Mara. Frank, will you do the honours, please?
Yes, to the victor, the spoils. I think, look, everybody has been fantastic here today, and I would like to say that to all the people who aren't going to be called out here, that you have done a fantastic job as well and represented yourself very well. But we have to come down to one winner. So the 2020 gold medal winner is Marichel Grau.
Marichel, well done.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations, that's super.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We'll have to get you back to Ireland now.
Definitely.
We'll celebrate in style post-COVID. Fantastic. How does it feel, Marichel?
I think I've forgotten how to speak English. Sorry. It's such an honor. I'm really, really happy to be able to represent Johnstown Castle through the Teagasc Research Centres. It's such an honor to just be able to be here and be part of this.
Well, it's also recognition, I'm sure, for all the hard work that you put in, Marichelle. So well done and congratulations. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get to see you back in County Wexford very soon, and we'll celebrate in style. Well done, Marichelle. Stay well, and thank you for joining us today. Frank, have you some final words?
Well, first of all, just congratulations to Marichelle anyway. Marichelle, a fantastic achievement. And look, you're joining a long list of winners of the gold medal. I think this is the 27th one that we've handed out, and there's some very illustrious and illustrious names on that list. So you're now on that list, and that is something you'll retain for the rest of your career. So look, just to wrap up, Sharon, I think we have seen some fantastic people today. I think 15 Walsh Scholars were highlighted today, but that's 15 of actually a very small, of a very big number. We have over 250 students doing PhD programs and another 25 or 30 doing the knowledge transfer masters. So we've seen a very small snapshot of the projects and the work that's going on and the range of work, I suppose, that's going on. And it is actually one of the biggest PhD programs outside of in the state. And I would say, you know, we've seen 15, there's another 250 or 60, and they are all equally, I think, committed to their work. They're all doing tremendously important work. You know, the agriculture and food sector is facing many, many challenges, as you know, and who's going to find the solutions to those? It's these people that we've seen today. The next generation are going to be really, really important. So that's why we feel it's so important to have the best and the brightest people carrying out their research. So well done to all of our Walsh Scholars. I would also like to acknowledge their families, because they get huge support coming through a fellowship program from their family network, and that's very important to them. I'd also like to pay a tribute to the people who supervise them, and that's, you know, the Teagasc scientists who are their direct day-to-day supervisor, and also very much the supervisors we have in the universities, and they are so important to this program. And all the Irish universities are involved in the program, as well as a number of international universities, and we're really grateful for that commitment from the universities and their staff to this program. Okay. So look, I'm delighted to see, you know, that we've selected our winners, but I think everybody should regard themselves as being part of something very important.
It takes a village, is what you're saying, Frank.
Exactly.
Well done, and thank you for those very fitting final words, Frank, and thank you indeed, Jerry Boyle. And also, speaking of thanks, I want to thank Declan McCardle, who pulled off a feat of technological brilliance here today in Carlow. Also, Erin O'Rourke, Trish Groves, and Anne O'Kane. And thank you to all you out there in Zoom land. Thank you for your time and attention. We'll let you get up now and make a cup of tea or do whatever you have to do. Thank you for your time and attention, as I said. Fanagi Salwalse agus Gugu Dijiship.